Hello there, beautiful people. Welcome back to the channel. Now, if you're a lady joining us, welcome. And if you're a man joining us, guys, calm down. You're scaring the New York Times. Alright guys, so today I wanted to talk to you guys about an article that's been going around Facebook, and I noticed it on Facebook. Some of you guys may have already seen it, and this article is in the New York Times. Now, before getting into the article, I would like to tell you that according to my opinion, the New York Times has been a bit of a leftist echo chamber. It has been very predominantly liberal for as long as I have been following it. I don't know if that was always the case. And just a few weeks ago, I think it was 1 week ago to be honest, or maybe 2 weeks ago, there was an article titled, "Should My Children Be Friends with White People?" Now, that was an opinion piece, and a lot of you guys would probably say, hey, that does not reflect the views of the New York Times. And you're right, that probably does not. But I just don't think an article titled, "Can my children be friends with black people or Hispanic people or Asian people" would ever be published there, I think. Well, this article comes in the backdrop of the rampant sexual allegations that's been going around in the United States. A lot of it has been directed at the media, some in Hollywood, and the American politics. Both the Republicans and the Democrats have had their fair share of sexual allegations that came up in recent times, and this article is almost a response to that. And I think this article comes from a good place. I think the author really has good intentions, but in my opinion, he overgeneralized the hell out of it. Okay, so the article is titled "The Unexamined Brutality of the Male Libido." Now, I'll get to the article in a little bit. A little background about the author. The author is a Canadian by the name of Stephen Marsh, and I've never heard of him before, but I've Googled some of his work. It seems to be that he's a fairly outspoken male feminist, and feminism, or at least the third wave feminism that we see in the United States, has been one of those agendas that's being pushed by the New York Times. So this is a sort of mentality that goes into the kind of things we would expect from the New York Times. So let's dive into the article. I'm not going to read the full article. If you guys are curious, the full article will be in the description below. Read it for yourself and make your own opinion, but I'll just give you my impressions of it, okay? So let's just read parts of it together. So let's start. Men arrive at the moment of reckoning woefully unprepared. Most are shocked by the reality of women's lived experience. Almost all are uninterested or unwilling to grapple with the problem at the heart of all this, the often ugly and dangerous nature of the male libido. Okay, so that's one of the starting points of the article, and it's talking about the recent wave of sexual assault and allegations. Now, first of all, men are not unwilling to talk about it. I think the writer almost ignores the fact that men does not just include that dude you meet at the bar or your friend. Men includes fathers, men includes husbands, men include boyfriends, fiancés, brothers, people whose wives, sisters, daughters are victims or are working in said industries where they might be subject to sexual allegations, at least the stuff we see in recent times. So I think the author completely disregards all those people who are probably worried sick about their daughters or wives working in these industries, and these people are not unwilling. A lot of these times, these people are restricted from speaking in a certain way because, at least in the political climate in the United States, what can you do if your wife works in a very risky environment? You can't force your wife to not work. That is well within her rights. And what can you do? A lot of times if you try to interfere or you try to do something, you might be accidentally hindering your wife or your daughter's career. And nobody wants to do that. So this is a very difficult position for a lot of men to be in. And I don't think the author is giving those men due justice. I mean, that's been my impression. But let's move on. For most of history, we've taken for granted the implicit brutality of the male sexuality. In 1966, the radical feminist and pornography opponent Andrea Dorpin said that the only sex between a man and a woman that could be undertaken without violence was sex with a flaccid penis. I'm gonna take a guess here, and this is just a guess, but I think that lady did not have a good sex life. I think that men will have to give up their precious erections, she wrote. In the 3rd century AD, it is widely believed that the great Catholic theologian Origen, working in roughly the same principle, castrated himself. Yeesh! Man, that's a pretty radical position. I mean, dude, if dudes go around castrating themselves, there would be fewer little women coming out. I'm just saying. These radical notions aside, this is one of those reasons why I brought up the author's background. If you Google the author Stephen Marsh and look through some of his other works, you sort of see him hinting that he is to some extent sympathetic to some of the more radical feminist ideologies. I'm not entirely sure how I feel about that, but I'll let you guys be the judge. Let's read a little more, it gets better. Acknowledging the brutality of the male libido is not, of course, some kind of excuse. Sigmund Freud recognized the id and knew it as a chaos, a cauldron full of skeething excitations. But the point of Freud was not that boys will be boys. Rather the opposite. The idea of the Oedipus complex contained an implicit case for the requirements of strenuous repression. If you let boys be boys, they will murder their fathers and sleep with their mothers. That went dark pretty fast. Not sure how to react to that. Let's read a little more. That alone would be an immense step forward. If you want to be a civilized man, you have to consider what you are. Pretending to be something else, some fiction you would prefer to be, cannot help. It is morality but culture, accepting our monstrosity, reckoning with it, that can save us, if anything can. Okay, so that was the ending point of the article. Now, my main problem with the article is that, much like a lot of social justice feminist thinking, this article has defined the population into two groups: men, women. Men are the oppressors, women are the oppressed. That's not exactly the case. If you look at the recent wave of sexual harassment, it's not only women that are victim. A lot of men are also coming out being victimized. And I think Terry Crews came out. A whole brood of young actors has been coming out against Kevin Spacey. And it's not just that. If you listen to the podcast of Bill Burr, who is one of my favorite comedians, he talks about what it's like for young comedians, both male and female, and the sort of harassment that they have to go through. The media industry, it consists of multiple divisions, right? So there are this group of people who are responsible for casting. There are also this group of people who are responsible for advertising and marketing. And a lot of these times, people in charge of advertising and marketing are women. And of course, this does not speak for all women, but there are certain women in that particular group of people who tend to abuse their power. And when I say this, I try to highlight the fact that power is an important element here. If you look at the recent allegations that came out against all the people, whether they be in politics or media, there has been an obvious power dynamics here that has been in favor of the accused and has been, not in favor of the victim. So I think the writer has really been generalizing here and really demonizing all men. And I think the problem with that is it's not constructive. This sort of thinking really pits the genders against one another, where you have men versus women, whereas that really should not be our mentality. We're facing a problem that concerns all of us as society. and rather than come together pitting the individual genders against one another, I don't think leads to the best possible outcome. Well, that's my impression. That's what I think about it. The full article is down in the description below. You guys read it yourself and tell me what you think. And I'll see you guys next time. Thank you for your time.